So in last week's video, I gave you 5 reasons why I would not use a certain kind of guitar live, and I asked a question. In this week's video, I'm giving you 5 reasons why I often travel to a gig with no guitar and no amp, and I will also be asking a question. So back in the day, when I first got my JCM 800 50 watt head, which I guess would be 85, 86, that became my sound, air quotes, that became my sound. And I used that amp for years. I used that all through the Joyriders years. But the Joyriders, we were doing okay, so we had like a small record deal, and we had a van, and we had a couple of roadies, so we had people to take care of that sort of thing. So the JCM 800 and a Marshall 4x12 pretty much became my sound, and that's all I would use. So that was back in the day. Currently I play in a band called Twisted Nerve. Probably half of our gigs are fly shows in Europe, and we don't take anything with us at all. Now the thing is, with Brexit, we were worried that travelling with musical equipment we would get stopped and sent back. So I got to the stage in Twisted Nerve where we would just travel to gigs and not take anything with us and just use whatever guitar amplifier was available. So I have got very much used to doing this. You know, it's not a big deal. I'll get a message saying we've been offered a gig in wherever, Berlin, are you available? And that's all I need to do. I say, yeah, I'm available, and then we just go and do the gig. We don't find out what we're getting until we get there. And a lot of my friends who play in other bands just can't believe, like, I do this sort of thing, you know. They say, what, you just turn up to the gig, you have no idea what you're going to be using. I would never do that. So that's today's question. Would you ever consider just going to a gig, whether it be, you know, down the road or in another country, you have to fly there. Would you ever consider turning up and playing a gig if you didn't know what equipment you were going to be using, and it was just like cross your fingers and hope for the best? Please do let me know. So the 5 reasons that I'm happy to do this are: 1, logistics. We're flying to a gig. I don't want to be carrying a guitar with me, you know. Don't want to be putting someone in the hold. Like when we go to gigs, there's nothing in the hold, so we just go off the plane through customs. You know, we're only there for about 30 minutes and we're outside the airport and we're getting picked up by the promoter to go into the gig. The logistics of taking a guitar in the hold would be that, you know, we have to wait until the plane is unloaded, and that's like another hour or something, depending on how long it takes. Meanwhile, the promoter's been hanging about for an hour waiting on you, you know, with a sign saying Twisted Nerve, where are you? So that's reason 1. Reason 2 is just the cost of doing that sort of things. You know, it costs money to take extra baggage on. I mean, we're not flying in first class, we're flying EasyJet and Ryanair and stuff like that. So we'd have to pay extra money to take a guitar. Now bearing in mind we are flying to gigs and it's only costing £50-60 for the flight, we'd be doubling our cost, or doubling my cost, to go and do the gig. So that's reason 2, just the sheer cost. Reason 3, the convenience of it all. You know, I'm not carrying loads of stuff to the airport. I've just got like a bag with my clean socks and pants, maybe a spare t-shirt or two because we normally fly on Friday, play on Saturday, fly home Sunday. Just the sheer convenience of not having to carry anything with me when I'm there. Reason 4, strangely enough, I have found out that I just don't need them. You know, back in the day, I thought I had my sound and I was like, no, I can't go to a gig unless I've got my amp, or I'm using an amp that's like my amp, and I'm using my guitar, or I'm using a guitar which is like my guitar. You know, I want my sound, so I want to turn up, and that's what I get. But what I've discovered since I started doing this sort of thing, fly gigs and that, is that I don't really need them at all. You know, like, I'm just a guy who plays a guitar, hopefully with humbuckers. I mean, I've shown up occasionally. I think I got a single coil melody maker one time, which wasn't the best. But generally speaking, it's like a humbucker guitar, and I'm plugging into an amp, which is not particularly high gain. You know, I'm not doing thrash metal, as long as it's got a bit of overdrive. So I found out that I'm just a guy who plays humbucker guitars through an amp with a bit of overdrive, and it's not a huge deal of getting exactly the right amp. You have to make the best of what you're given, and I've found it doesn't take me long to do that. And when I watch videos back of doing all these gigs, I think that just sounds like the same in every gig. I just sound like a guy with a humbucker guitar playing with a bit of overdrive, and I don't hear any huge difference. It's just crazy. You know, when I go back 30 years, it's like, I would never have done that. Show up to a gig without my Marshall JCM 800 half stack and my 1970s Gibson Les Paul Custom. No way would I do that. But these days that's fine. You know, like, I'll turn up, somebody will hand me a guitar maybe half an hour before the show, and I think, Okay, I've got a really nice Telecaster, Milan I think it was, this is Milan, or Bergamo, and there was an ESP red telly. So I got to meet that 20 minutes before I went on stage, just have a quick strum. I mean, I don't know what strings are going to be on it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it's 9s or 10s at the worst. Any more than 10s and I'd have to get the plane back home. So that's reason 4. I have discovered that I don't actually need to take all my stuff with me. I don't need to get my sound. Reason 5. Now this is maybe strange to some people. I enjoy the challenge of it. Visit a beautiful city in Europe and do a gig, and I don't know what I'm going to be using. I just turn up to the gig and I think, what am I going to get today? And it really is, you know, fingers crossed, it's going to be quite good, but touch wood, I've got through every one so far. I mean, I don't want to tempt fate, but I've managed to get through every one so far of just turning up to gigs, not knowing what you're going to be using, and then maybe having half an hour to get it sorted out and then get playing. So that was reason 5. I really do quite enjoy the challenge, but I appreciate it's maybe not for everybody. So that's the question. Would you be happy doing this sort of thing? Imagine I phoned you and said there's a Twisted Nerve gig in Leipzig and I can't do it, so could you go and do this gig for me? Would you just get on a plane and fly to the gig and then have 30 minutes to get yourself together and then just do the gig? It's not for everybody, I'll tell you that, but Twisted Nerve, the guys in Twisted Nerve, it's an adventure. Everything we do is an adventure. As ever, folks, it's a privilege and a pleasure bringing you content on Dunsy's Guitar World. Just for now.